Hey, Rifters, welcome to the show. Subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Very excited for this guest. First of all, follow the show on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reza Riffs, and then join our Patreon, www.patreon.com, Reza Riffs 61. Write a review on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. Give us some good stars. And if you didn't like the show, tell us why. Help me improve. I'm really trying to get those reviews up so I could get more guests. Speaking of guests, I'm very excited for this guest. He, I'm sure I'll explain to this when he's on, but I stumbled upon his comedy special and I became a fan. And then I did more research and I realized he's been doing comedy longer than me. And you've seen him in The Family Stone, you've seen him in Friends, you've seen him in Kings of Queens. You probably know him best from My Boys. His comedy special is called Homeschooled, and it's on Spotify and YouTube. It's really, really funny. You should check it out. Jamie Kaler is going to be here via Zoom. All right, guys. So enjoy the show, and don't forget to share, support, and enjoy Razor Riffs with Jamie Kaler coming up next.
From Hollywood, California, welcome to Razor Riffs with your host, Keith Razor.
Hey, Jamie. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, awesome.
What's up, Keith? Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Yeah. So I wanted to start on how I became a fan of yours. First of all, it's one of those weird things because you know how like when you do comedy, you don't there's other comedians, but paths just never cross or whatever. So I wasn't aware of you, but I listened to your special on the Spotify because it was just like tracking comedians we think you'd like or whatever. I thought it was great. And then I did more research and I found out you've been doing comedy forever. I was like, oh my God.
I have a crazy career. I always say I'm jack of all trades and master of none. But I'm not just a stand-up, and especially nowadays, I have two little kids. So the road is just almost impossible at this point to do. So I am more doing acting and voiceover stuff. But yeah, back in the day, before I had the kids, I would tour a lot. But even then, I was an actor. I would do My Boys, and then I'd go tour for a few weeks, and then I'd go back. And I mean, nowadays it's crazy. Stand up, these guys are doing arenas and stuff, and who knew it was going to blow up like that? But yeah,
I have no desire to do arenas. I just like doing the small crowds, kind of like how your special was, where like 100 people, maybe 200, just very intimate. You know what I mean?
Well, that one, was it the first album or the second one? The one about my kids homeschooling?
Homeschooled, yeah.
So that's a really interesting special. I was just talking to somebody else and I was like, why don't we do this more? Because a lot of times, you'll write and write and write and write, and you'll do like a year and a half, 2 years on the road and try to polish it into this like perfect 45-minute set. And with that one, I kind of wrote it in a vacuum while I was homeschooling. I was literally every day. I had a first grader and a third grader, and I'd put them in their uniforms, make breakfast, print out their schedules, put it above, and we'd do the days and stuff. And it was, super painful. And then I would do jokey stuff with my friends. We were doing Zooms and we did the Dadlands and the Parents Lounge stuff. And I started to put together this act. And I literally wrote the whole thing in a vacuum, like you would with like a sitcom.
Right.
And then I ran it one weekend at the La Jolla Comedy Store. And I had all the notes on the stage and I ran the entire show. And then I invited all the kids' parents from my kids' school. And I rented a little studio here in North Hollywood. And it was the first time in the pandemic anyone had seen each other in like a year. And we all, oh my God, people, you can see it. That's my wife hammered on the stage and all my friends are. So it was basically in front of all these parents from my kids' school that I hadn't seen in a year with material I had run for one weekend. And it's so funny because a lot of those jokes now have been more polished and more expanded, but they were so in the moment of that week. And it came out super great and I'm very proud of it. But I didn't run those things for a year on the road. I literally wrote them in a vacuum and then ran it that one weekend and then shot it twice. I shot it 2 times that night. And
so it was a 1 week try and then you nailed it.
Well, if you do a sitcom, which is kind of my favorite thing on earth, you show up on Monday, you read a script.
Yeah.
Everyone sits around a table, you read it. It's super fun. It's exciting. It's kind of why we got into the business in the first place. Let's put on a show. And then, the writers are like, they're all watching and they go, that joke didn't work. And they're rewriting and you get new pages on Tuesday and people put it up on their feed and we're running scenes and the writers are watching and they're making changes. And Wednesday comes, Thursday is like a little dress. At Thursday afternoon's a dress rehearsal in front of all the big wigs at the network. And then they put their notes in. And then all of a sudden the script changes a little bit more. Some other stuff changes. And then all of a sudden Friday, they bring the whole audience in. You run it in the morning and you're super nervous and you do a speed through in the makeup chair. And I remember doing like Friends, How I Met Your Mother, King of Queens, like 35 different sitcoms, Grounded for Life,
Yeah.
Third Rock from the Sun. And then you'd be like, here we go. And then you'd shoot this insane show. And, you could shoot a second or third take. But the truth is, once the audience saw that joke, it's not going to hit as hard the second time. So if you stumble on that joke the first take,
It's your fault.
Do it again, but it's not going to come out. All of a sudden the audience is like, we saw that joke, we got it. And then you'd shoot for like 6-7 hours or whatever, and they'd shoot each scene and cut. But it's a 4 camera, so they're covering the whole thing at once. So you got to hit your mark, say your line, be funny, and then you go out for drinks. It's the greatest. Like doing Will and Grace was, because I'd gone back. I'd done like 6 of them, and so by the 4th, 5th, and 6th, I was like, they were really cool, and I was part of the gang.
They knew your name.
Honestly, Jim Burrows knew my name, and that was like, just to watch Jim Burrows, I was like, because Cheers is basically why I became an actor.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be Sam Malone. And so doing Will and Grace and the very first Will and Grace I did was with Gene Wilder was my boss in the show. And so,
I was going to ask you about that. Like how cool and intense was that?
It was nuts. I mean, I've told this a few times, but each time I'm like, I hadn't really been acting that much. I was a Navy lieutenant until I was like 30. I got out, I started acting. I book a couple shows. I get a Friends episode where I'm like, I don't have a ton of lines. And all of a sudden I'm in Will and Grace and I'm with Gene Wilder. It was like my boyhood hero. I mean, I revered.
Yeah.
And so I go to do the first rehearsal with him and I look at him and he says his line. And in the back of my head, I'm like, that's Willy Wonka. I can't even act. I'm like, I really had to have a little talk with myself. I go, you can do this. You can do this. He's just an actor. But he couldn't have been kinder. He was like the nicest. It's so funny because he was like the most soft-spoken person you've ever spoke. Where do we stand? Right over here? Is that going to be the and then he would do the scene and he would be he'd be hilariously funny and he was like the sweetest, softest, gentlest person on earth. And then he was Gene Wilder. And you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. My friend Jake Weber was on Gene Wilder's show in like the early 90s, and he told me that Gene was the nicest guy, but Jake isn't like really a comedy guy. And he said that Gene told him, hey, if this sitcom doesn't work out, don't ever audition for another sitcom.
Did he say that to him? That's all. I don't know about that. That sounds good. I will tell you, I learned something from him because I didn't want to, but I couldn't. You just couldn't help but watch him. You're in a room and everyone's doing stuff over here and props are here and makeup and everybody's doing stuff. And there's Gene Wilder sitting right there and you're like, and he's kind of reading his script or whatever. But he had a bit in the show where Will hands him it's a birthday card or something. And he goes, oh, thank you very much. And he tears it right in front of Will's face. It's hilariously funny. But I watched him and this was during rehearsal like a day or two before. And he was talking to one of the prop people and he goes, could I get a handful of cards? And they were like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And they give him a handful of cards and I watched him and he sat over in his own little area and he tore each card up in a different way.
Oh my gosh.
When he tore, he went, shh. And he thought about it and he put that down. And then he took the second one, he went, shh. And he put that down. And then he took another one and he looked straight like he was looking at Will and just tore a corner off, took a piece, took a piece. And he was that kind of guy, which I mean, as a comedy guy, you sit there and if you go, how many times did you go to the store yesterday? I went 42 times. Like, what's the perfect number? And there is one.
Yeah.
Like there's a
It's,
perfect number that's the funniest number that you can come up with. So for each joke, I think he had that meticulous thing of like, there's one exact way to tear this card that will be the funniest way to do it. And
yeah.
that's and he like really it wasn't just a throwaway. He really thought out exactly what he was gonna do. And it was crazy. It was crazy to watch.
See, if I would have saw that, I would have just thought to myself, "Oh my God, Gene Wilder's going nuts."
Well, he had been sick too, and I think Gilda Radner had always already passed away, and so and he had had cancer, and so we were told, don't, leave Gene alone, let Gene just do Gene, and but he couldn't have been. So I was like, don't. It was like a crystal vase in a museum where they're like, don't touch the vase,
Yeah.
don't touch it. You're gonna break it. So I was like, you know, but he couldn't have been kinder, and he told a couple stories, but I didn't go like, dude, what was Willy Wonka? What was it like to make Young Frankenstein? Like I didn't do that to him, but I wanted to so badly.
He's the one guy that I think would have been a great stand-up if he did stand-up. You know what I mean? Like,
He could have done anything he wanted to, but yeah, he was a huge theater guy. I think that's what makes him such a great comic. And I comedy sometimes doesn't get the appreciation. I don't think it does, but and I've done some drama. I've done mostly comedy,
uh,
but I'm always under the guise that like I think comedy is actually harder than drama.
oh,
Like
for
I
sure.
sit here and I just look kind of dour and I talk to you about I get diagnosed with cancer today. It's gonna be people are going to feel emotion because of what you're talking about, but try to make somebody laugh. I think it's so hard. And so I'm always amazed when like Bill Murray doesn't get nominated for Best Actor in Groundhog Day. You do Groundhog Day. You do the same day a billion times and make it just nuanced different and still be blindingly funny. I don't think people get the credit. So to me, I mean, I was Gene Wilder. I don't know if did he even get nominated for Academy Awards ever? I don't know.
I'm not too sure, but
Not
he
either,
was
but
the
Young
best.
Frankenstein, the performance in Young Frankenstein is arguably one of the greatest comedic performances of all time. It's crazy good.
He did one with Richard Pryor. Uh
Silver Streak,
it wasn't that one. It was
the one where one's blind and one's deaf.
yeah,
You
that
don't.
one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was great in that.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
what
such a
was
good
that called? It
actor.
was like See No Evil or
Yeah.
Hear No or something.
Yes. I think that might be it. I think so.
Yeah. It's very underrated where like people think wouldn't say that's one of his best ones. You know what I
What's the
mean?
one where they go to prison and they're on the rodeo? Richard Pryor becomes a rodeo star. Stir Crazy
Stir crazy. Yeah,
was
that
one of
was
my
a good one.
favorites when I was a kid. But yeah, the whole time, I mean, all of a sudden, you go to work on shows. I mean, I'd sometimes be on shows and I'd be like, oh my God, this guy's like, I still am kind of, not, I don't get starstruck anymore, but I'm also like, I really respect somebody's work. And
Yeah.
when I get to work with them, there is this, like, oh my gosh, that's because the other ones who played my boss were Jeff Goldblum, I did episodes with, and Lily Tomlin, who was, I mean,
Oh my
crazy.
gosh, she's
Phenomenal.
great.
So every time I went on Will and Grace, it was just a star-studded cast. That
Yeah.
show, I don't know if you remember the stunt casting on it, but everyone on that show was like the biggest stars. It was crazy.
I wanted to ask you before My Boys because you said you did Friends and King of Queens, and like you were just doing these episodes, getting your start in the business. And like you said before, they rewrite stuff all the time. Did you ever like think, oh, like, did you ever like have the guts to think of something off the cuff and try and do it, or did you think, oh, I don't want to
Sure.
overstep that? Oh
It
yeah,
was rare, like yes, but I would do it in rehearsals. Like
okay,
I wouldn't do it once the show was locked.
yeah,
I wouldn't do it. The cameras are set very specifically, and by that time everything's locked and loaded. But sure, during the week, I'm always been kind of a physical because I've done so much stage and sketch and improv stuff that I was always kind of physical. And so yeah, I would add little touches of things I thought were funny, and sometimes I'd be like, yeah, don't do that again. Don't do that. I go, oh, okay.
yeah,
I remember like yeah, but sometimes you would do it and they go, keep that. Yes. And you go, great. But
yeah.
I think it's kind of the collaborative process that I like. And listen, some shows you can be collaborative, and some shows they don't really want you to be collaborative. Just say your words and move along.
Yeah. Do they kind of give you that hint though, like so you can find out which shows are cool with it or which shows aren't cool with
You
it?
kind of find out when you when
Oh,
you
you
show
find
up.
oh,
Yeah,
you
you
gotta
gotta
test the
find out when
waters.
you try it. I remember having like super nerves of like thinking of something super funny and then being like, "Well, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try this." I'm gonna try this. And then they'd run the scene and you'd try it and they'd go like, and sometimes you try it and it wouldn't come out clean and you'd be like, "Ah, dang it." Yeah.
Yeah,
In table reads though, I don't. I would see people improvise in table reads and I would be like, "No, I wouldn't do that."
yeah.
The writers are all sitting right behind you going, I wrote jokes I wanted you to say, so just say your jokes. And a lot of times I would go to the writer before I would try it and show
Oh,
them
that's smart. Yeah.
and go like, hey, listen, I thought maybe, and sometimes be like, yeah, don't touch it. And other times they'd be like, yeah, that's great. Some people are precious about their words and other people are just be funny. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, Mammoth, you read stories about those guys doing Glengarry Glen Ross, and they're like the hardest part of that job. I think Ed Harris says it is like learning the lines because he would, Mamet writes in stammers and pauses where people are like, I'm gonna go I'm gonna well, if first of all, let me tell you, I'm once I get to the but the everything and the ellipses are scripted.
Right.
When you watch Glengarry Glen Ross, there's not one syllable that is uttered that is not in the script.
Yeah.
And as an actor, that's like Shakespeare. That's more hard for me. Like I'm more improvisational, I would say. But
It's
yeah.
funny that you say that because a lot of people do think like or the word like or something like these are words that they feel that an actor is just doing because they're forgetting the words, but real people actually talk like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's if it fits the rhythm, like when you watch Glengarry, it fits the rhythm because they all do it, right? And so the play has a lyricality to it. But if you stick it into, if you ever watch, like I just did a SWAT episode.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
How
Yeah, I
cool is
just
that?
did a SWAT episode like 2 weeks ago. It was great. Oh my gosh, with Jay Harrington is amazing. And it was
Yeah.
super fun. And that'll come out, I think, in January. And
Did he get killed or can you not tell?
no, I don't get killed. I think I'm
Oh,
coming back, but I don't know. But it was a character who's may hire SWAT as his security. He's like a billionaire guy who may hire SWAT as his security. So well, I don't know, but we'll see. But it's like when you watch Law and Order, nobody's changing a line because it's so much exposition. It's like da 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 da. If anyone pauses, it almost seems out of place, and it kind of puts a speed bump in the rhythm of the whole show. So and it was some of the dialogue was just pure exposition, and I was like desperately trying to memorize it, like
yeah.
to get it out. And then you're doing the scene with the guy, and you go up and you're like, wait, what was I about to say? And you're like, you can't go. I mean, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't
Right.
work. So you have to pull those ums back. But
Oh,
yeah, I mean, most people talk like that.
no, for sure.
It's kind of a pet peeve when I watch people talk. I think like being a comic and an actor has destroyed my ability to understand people talking like that. When you see someone and they're trying to tell you a story, in the back of my head, I'm like, pick it up. I got it. I know. I see where we're going. Let's cut and moving on. I got it.
R-
I see what you're talking about.
Right. Well, see, I like stories. I like the stories where like people like just like I don't know if you know Pablo Francisco, but
Oh my God.
he's the best storyteller.
That guy, he honestly, when I started stand up, was an absolute just destroyer. I would be
Yeah.
in the back of the improv, and I barely probably had 10 minutes. I couldn't even do 10, 15 minute set and get through it. And this guy for 1 hour would be on like just extra monster energy drink where you're like, he would do the band murdered the Irvine Improv. I watched him one whole weekend. I want to say I featured for him one weekend,
Oh, that's
or at
all.
least
I
you know what?
currently
I
feature
might have been a
for him.
host. I might have
Yeah.
hosted a weekend he did, and I was tired after his act.
Oh yeah.
That dude, A game, just murdered people. Yeah.
Well, I feature for him right now, and so like I usually drive him and stuff, and I gotta tell you, the drive is just like the show. Like I'm just like, oh my god, you know?
That's so awesome. I didn't know that. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Where are you guys and where is he? Does he still doing he's still doing all the improvs, I believe, isn't he?
we just did Oxnard last week, so
Levity Live.
yeah, yeah,
One of my favorite clubs in the world. That place, I love that club.
yeah,
Super fun. Yeah, and that's part of the Levity Improv group.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's
The one
great.
in Irvine used to be my favorite. And
Where
then
was by the Yard House?
oh my gosh. And it was had that
Yeah,
out. It was so built. It was like a little everyone was here. And now it's I don't blame them,
it's
but it's
too
like 800
theatery.
seats and I
Yeah,
can't like the last time I headlined there, I think I sold like half the place and that was a major achievement for me. Because you got to sell 6 shows a weekend times 800, that's 4,800 seats. It's like Joe Coy will sell it out like 12 straight nights, 2 shows a night. And you're like, it's insane the amount of people.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that whole chain. The Brea one I love. And obviously Hollywood was although I will tell you the last time I kind of stopped doing the Hollywood one because I'm older. I have 2 little kids. And so my whole act is about being an old dude with kids.
Right.
And, the Hollywood improv's like 21-year-olds. And I'm like, hey, who's got kids? And everyone's like, get off the stage. We hate you. None of us have kids. We don't want to hear a word you're saying. Go away. And I'm like, but kids suck, don't they? And they're
Yeah.
like, don't get it.
Well, no, I mean, Pablo's been very nice to me because, like, when the pandemic happened, I used to tour with Norm Macdonald for 9 years, and when I
I didn't
lost,
know that. Speaking of
yeah,
all timers.
so like when I lost Norm, and this is like gonna like really make you cry. Saget took me in, and then Saget died, and then Pablo and T.J. Miller take me in right now. But like it's like, oh, dude, like I think they were kind of scared of taking me. You know what I mean? Like, so
I know it's hard to put that in your act, but by the way, you only opened for absolute destroyers.
yeah, and then they died.
Well, yeah. So I featured for Freddie Soto.
Oh my god.
I featured for him about 6 months before he passed at the Atlanta Punchline. And then within a year, I featured for Greg Giraldo at the
Oh
Atlanta
my god.
Punchline. So you and I have a lot in common as far as featuring for guys who, I mean, we're killers. We're absolute killers.
And we kind of look alike. I mean, if
Yeah.
I don't have the hat, I have the blonde hair.
You're
so.
like my long lost son, really.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Oh my god.
Yeah, I used to run O'Brien's when I first started stand up. I moved here at 30. I was a Navy lieutenant. I get out in San Diego. I fall into an improv group. My buddy's like, "Hey, you're kind of funny. Come to our improv group. There's really good looking girls in it." I go, "Yeah, that sounds great. I would love to do that." And so all of a sudden I discover improv. I love it. I end up I'm not even doing stand up really at the time. I start doing some sketch. I get a couple jobs out of nowhere. Somebody brings me in for a SeaWorld commercial I book. I make a ton of money. I do Renegade with Lorenzo Lamas and I do silk stockings and I'm like 30 years old and I go, I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to be an actor. Here I go. And I get up here. I still not really doing stand up, but I do. I had, dabbled. I tried a handful of times, but it wasn't my jam yet. And so I do Acme Comedy Theater. I start getting a little work, but I get a job bartending at this Irish pub in Santa Monica, O'Brien's. And there's a little stage in the back where they do like, Ken O'Malley and the Young Dubliners are up here, boyo, singing Irish songs every night. It was magic, really fun. And so I go, look, I'm going to start a stand-up night. I can't get booked. No one will book me to do stand-up because I'm not.
Same here, yeah.
Nobody knows me. So what do? We started because we're go-getters, and so I started my own.
Make your own show.
You have to.
Yeah.
And that way, when you book people who are also bookers, you swap times, right? So I end up starting to do other people's rooms and everyone does my room. And I run that room for like 5 years. And back in the day, it was epic. We had anyone who was anybody did it. Zach Galifianakis was there all the time. Chelsea Handler. Ronnie is a buddy of mine. He came and did it. Like everybody came through. Oh my God. I learned such a valuable lesson from Todd Glass. Before him, I used to blame the room and go, ugh, not my fault. The room stuck tonight. There was like 5 people. And then one night, Todd Glass came in, and I don't know if I've ever seen anyone destroy this art in front of 4 people. He murdered.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you can be funny in front of 4 people. Oh, okay. It's my fault. I'm the blame. I learned such a valuable lesson. So all these people came and did this room, and one night, Chris Hardwick was a buddy of mine at the time, and he used to come down and do the room a lot. And he brought Saget. He and Saget were friends. And
Oh, nice.
Bob Saget's here. And Bob Saget's one of my favorite comics. And I kept pleading with him. I was like, Bob, you got to go on. He goes, oh, no, I can't. It's like a little dive of a back of an Irish pub with 2 like little streamer lights on it, you know? But it's pretty packed. We got some shows were just epic shows. And, it's a pretty good show. And I'm like, Bob, you got to go on. Got to go on. I'm pleading with him the whole show. It gets towards the end of the show. He goes, fine. I'll do 3 minutes. I'll do a tight 3, but I'm not doing it any longer. I'm not going on any longer. So we go, hey, everybody, you're not going to believe it. Big. And people are like, oh my God, Bob Saget. We've had other people like this go on. And all of a sudden we have this crazy Thursday night. Saget's on. People from the bar start coming in. And it's like, people are like climbing over people. It's in this tight, packed room in the back of O'Brien's and Saget. He starts, and he's filthy, absolutely filthy. And he's crushing. And like 30, it might have been 40, 45 minutes later, there's a band that's supposed to go on at 10. It's like 10:20, and these people, they don't know who Bob Saget is. They don't like Bob Saget. They want Bob Saget off that stage immediately. And the band's fans are starting to stream in. And they're like, they don't know who Bob Saget is or whatever. And Saget's murdering. I literally have to, and he won't get off the stage. He just keeps going because the crowd is loving it. And I'm like, it's like 45 minutes in. I'm like, Bob, the band was supposed to go on like an hour ago, dude. You got to get off. And so I'm just walking on and like basically taking the microphone out of his hand. He's still telling jokes. He's like, let me dress your ass up like a rabbit and feed it carrots. I'm like, Saget, get off the stage, you son of a. And
thank God he didn't have his guitar. Otherwise, he'd have a hard time doing that.
He'd still be there. He'd still just be jamming away. But it was that kind of vibe back in the room. I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was like, I just think that's what some of these kids are missing out on. I get it. If you're not doing TikTok now, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. But there was something so vibrant about getting up in a room in front of 6 people some nights. I did bowling alleys. I did laundromats. I did a youth hostel where nobody spoke English.
Did you ever do funerals?
I know. Did you do a funeral?
Yeah.
Wait, you got to tell me that story. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, I've done everything, but like so my grandfather died, and I thought I would just tell jokes, So I was like just telling jokes about nobody got it, and I was just like, well, Pop would have thought this was hilarious, you know what I mean? So it was really awkward because I was speaking at my grandfather's funeral, and everyone in my family probably hates me because they're like, oh, you weren't being sweet or sincere. I was like, I actually really was, but I was just being funny because, that's how I did it. And so now I have a bit of that experience when I'm bombing. I just say, oh, this is just like telling jokes at a funeral.
That's so funny. But that's how I'm kind of the same way of like gallows humor of like, look, man, we're here not for a long time. Let's make it fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I spoke at a memorial the other day, and but everybody put jokes in. It was for a comedy writer who passed away, and everyone was telling, everyone was crying and then laughing, and I think you have to laugh. Like if you go to my funeral and nobody's cracking jokes, and I'd be bummed. I think so.
Oh no, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like not to brag, but like that bit, I go pretty dark. How like the person who hired me died, blah blah blah, and then I name certain amount of how they killed themselves, and they left a note, and I read their note. And this lady was at a show one time, and she said, my brother actually killed himself. And I just want I thought that was hilarious. And I thought that like, that's the point of the humor is like that you're trying to find the cleverness and the bright side of something tragedy like that. You know what I mean? And I feel a lot of people don't understand that, especially at a funeral.
I feel that way about a lot of comedy where it's like, you're not getting the joke. I'm making fun of the racist. Don't you see that? And they go, well, you use this word. And I go, Yeah, I'm making fun of the people who use that word. This is it's called satire. Do you not understand how satire works? I had a bit about that because I was on a plane one time and there was like 10 autistic people on the plane with me. And it's a big long story of how it turns out to be the greatest day. Even though I was like having a horrible time, it turns out to be this great flight. And of course I used the R word. And this was like early on in my career. So this was many, many years ago. And I would say the R word and how I wish I was R because, they don't, all they care about is tying their shoes. And it's like, wouldn't it be great if you didn't understand how evil and mad the world was? And most people who had somebody who was autistic in their family would come up after and be like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. That was like the most beautiful bit." And it was, and then other people who just heard the word were like, "I can't believe you would use a word like that." And I was like, "Well, then you don't
You
get
don't
it."
get it. Yeah. Well,
That's common.
I'm on the spectrum, so I probably would be one of those people that say, "Thanks for doing it." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Titus has a great joke where he uses the R word, and it's like a 9-minute
Yeah.
joke, and
That
it's
was wild.
actually, yeah, but it's kind of like when you're showing the bright sides of it, because you know what I mean. Like a lot of people on the spectrum are actually very, very smart and gifted. So it's kind of, so how does that make someone retarded? You know what I mean?
I know.
So.
Well, I always just said, I talked about that word, and if you don't put it towards anything in, to retard something is to slow down. And so to me, the point of my bit was, wouldn't it be great if we could all just slow down, especially nowadays where it's like you put your phone down, you pick it back up, there's another 25 emails. I'm like, I don't want to do this all day.
Yeah, that would give me
I want to,
anxiety.
it gives me anxiety all the time. And so, I was watching A River Runs Through It the other day, right? And there's no TV or anything. They're in Montana. It's in like the early 1900s. And they would just sit and you could hear the clock ticking behind them and they're drinking lemonade and reading a book. And part of me was like, oh, that looks awesome. Like, wouldn't it just be great? Because nowadays, if you get a text and you don't respond to it in like under 2 minutes, like people are calling social services going, hey, I think my friend's gone. I think he's dead. I just texted him. He didn't
Right.
respond.
He left me on red.
Yes, yes. That is the punchline right there. That's so funny. I have a joke in my act, right? Because I have a 9-year-old. I'm
Uh,
I'm 60. I have a 9-year-old child. And so I talk about the fact of how I grew up, like she comes home, she doesn't understand the fact that like I didn't have a cell phone as a kid. That doesn't even like what and the joke is that when I was a kid, if you went to a concert and you lost your friends, you made new friends, and that's how that show went. Because you could talk to people and maintain
yeah.
eye contact. It was a weird time. But my kids nowadays are so locked and loaded on these things that it is absolutely melting their brain. And I can see it. And I don't know how to stop it. Because if you take it away from your child, you're ostracizing them because the rest of their friends are all on text chains.
Yeah.
And so if you leave them out of that group talks about the kid who's out of the group. And you're like, I don't. So it's this weird.
It's kind of in a way a form of bullying too. Like kind of like that, where it's
Sure.
like, oh, like, oh, me and like, for example, you and the My Boys people, but the girl's not in the text message. You know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah.
like, what's the point of doing that when you should invite all of them if it's all about My Boys? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That makes total sense. And it's funny because I talk to my daughter all the time and I go, there's been issues where she was mean to some other kid or another kid was, they're mean girls,
Yeah.
basically, at times. And I always say, listen, I don't care what happens. All I ever preach is inclusion, include everybody, and empathy. That's it. That's my only two. If you come out of my life, and you're inclusive of everybody, and you have empathy for others, then I feel like I did a good job as a parent. Because you see these kids, and it's like when there's a three of them, two of them form a bond, if they
Right.
survive, and the other kid's out, and you're like, just turn to that kid and say, hey, why don't we all do something together? But they can't. They just can't do it sometimes, and it's really painful to watch.
Yeah, that's how my twin sisters are. They like to do their own thing. I like to do stand up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was the same dude. When I finally discovered stand up, I was like 35, I think. But I had, I had enough TV credits and also that made some of the comics hate my guts. I went to do shows and
Oh, they were probably like, "Oh, this guy's only on because he's on the he's a
I had a
famous."
couple friends who are really good comics, and years later they told me, they said, we kind of hated you because they thought I was just doing my 7 minutes to get my TV show. But the truth was, I love stand up. I was just terrified beforehand, and I finally got enough courage to go, all right, I'm going to commit to this. And then when I did Montreal. I was a new face at the age of 41 years old. I was a new face at Montreal, which
Oh,
was
so there's still a chance for me.
there's always a chance, baby. I like, my mother would always send me stuff. She goes like, Gene Hackman wasn't in a movie till he was 43. And then the other dude who does the lawnmower movie when he's like 68, I forget what his name is. Big mustache, white haired
Oh,
guy.
Rodney Dangerfield.
No, well, Dangerfield wasn't until he was like 40. He didn't make it till he was like 42, 43, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. What movie are you talking about?
Farnsworth. His name's Farnsworth. He's in a movie about a lawnmower. He plays a cowboy in every movie he's ever. Richard Farnsworth.
Oh, okay. All right.
And he's in some movie that got Academy Award nomination. And he's like, I want to say he's like 65 years old. Anytime that would happen, my mom would always text me. She goes, "It's never too late. It's never too late, Jamie. Never too late."
Yeah. Well,
Listen, everybody's on their own path, man. It's
for sure
for me sometimes because I wish I'd have started earlier. But who knows how it plays out? You just never know. Sometimes you start early and, they burn out at 25 and they're done.
Yeah.
To hold a career together for that long, I think as a comic, especially, if you just can continue to create and write your material and jokes and keep progressing, then you never know when your stuff will become really relevant and pop. You just can't.
Yeah.
You can't do it you can't do it to try to succeed. You have to do it because of the craft and the art of it, I think. Because I can't stand the social media stuff.
Oh, it sucks. It totally sucks.
I don't want to be the guy. I don't want to sit and I don't want to go home and cut my set into like 30-second clips and post them so that, hey, look, I said 30,
That's why I pay someone to do it for me.
I know. You kind of have to nowadays. But then you're bleeding money to try to do stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like I'm pretty much working for free, to be honest.
I know. So I know. I always feel like I'm such an artist, and then I'm like, the true artist never. It's hard. The art of this is business, really, and the people we know who are good artists and good businessmen are the people who are at the apex. And then we know some people who are good businessmen who do well, and some people who are good artists, and it's you never know where you're going to land, but as long as you can kind of maintain some semblance of sanity, I think, too.
Are we good on time? Because I did have 3 more questions. I want to respect your time.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally fine.
Oh, okay, cool. So I wanted to ask you about The Family Stone. I mean, I know you only had a couple scenes in it, but I think that's one of the best holiday films. I wanted to know when you got that, when you auditioned, like, did you know it was going to be like kind of like that?
Oh my God, no.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a crazy story. I go down and I am auditioning for the thing, and there's a spider by me. And at the time I was auditioning a lot.
Yeah.
And you get in your own head. So one audition you go in and you're adding lines and you feel like you're talking, maybe you leave and you don't book it and you're like, man, I feel like I talk too much. Sometimes I should just shut up. I should just not say anything. And so I go to audition for that, and I think there's like one line that I auditioned in the script or something. And he's like, make it your own and you can do what you want or something or other. And I don't think I said anything. I think I said like the one line, and then I just stood there and I don't know. I was in the moment. I could feel it and I just felt good about it, but I didn't try. I wasn't like, hey, look at me. I'm trying to be the guy who's the dad. Oh, let me hold the baby. Where's my dad? I miss my dad. I wasn't that guy for some reason. I just kind of had a good day.
Yeah.
And I left, and they call and they go, you booked it. And I go, I did? All right. It's crazy. Yeah. I've auditioned a billion. People used to go, what do you do for a living? I go, oh, I audition for a living. Occasionally I work for jobs and I get paid that way. But my real job is like auditioning. And as an improv artist and as a stand-up who'd bombed at a laundromat the night before, I would walk into a room and I'd be pretty bulletproof. Like I'd walk into rooms like I own the place.
Yeah.
man, that guy, we got to hire that guy. He's been super successful. And they'd be like, well, he doesn't have any credits. I don't know. There's something about him. That's how you get jobs in this town.
No,
Like,
for
you think if
sure.
you look like you need a job, people are like, we can't have him. He's too needy. The
Right.
second you go, I don't need this blanking job. People are like, that's the guy. We got to hire him.
Yeah.
For some reason that day, I just threw it away, and maybe I looked like the kid. I don't know. And I ended up getting it. And so I go to set. I remember vividly. I went to set, and the director, Thomas Bazooka, who's amazing. He was such a sweet guy. But I get there, and the whole cast is there, all of them.
Right.
Diane Keaton, Luke Wilson, Sarah Jessica Parker,
Dermot Mulroney,
Rachel McAdams, Claire Danes, Ron White. I forget the other guys' names or something. Like, it's crazy, the cast. And they were all huddled in a circle when I walked on set. And I walk on set, and they all looked up at me together, like in unison. It was the most uncomfortable. And I forget who said it. It might have been Luke, who was like, yeah, we were wondering who was going to get that part. And then nobody else said another word. And then they all just turned back to each other and continued their conversation.
oh my God.
I go, okay, I'll stand over here. And I shoot. I'm uncomfortable.
Right.
I think I shot 2 days. It was only supposed to be 1 day. And I think I showed up the first day, and I sat in the trailer for 12 hours. And I didn't shoot. And I think somebody came to the trailer and was like, oh, you're still here? Oh, no, they moved that scene to tomorrow. And I went home. I was like, oh, okay. In the back of my head, all I could think was, oh, man, I'm getting paid for another day. That's all I thought. That's all I thought about. And so I go back nobody else had spoken to me. I don't think anyone knew I was on set. They were like, it was such a big film. And I go back the next day, and I shoot my scenes, and all my scenes are on the same day. And I shoot them. And it's all improvised. I actually felt pretty good because I improvised, like, and I didn't have kids at the time, and I improvised like, hey, dad's home or whatever.
Right.
John Trousdale, who I'd forgotten the name until somebody reminded me. And I go in, and I shoot, and it's cool. And I go home. I will tell you, here's what I was really amazed by: how talented. Like, at the time, I hadn't really acted much, and so I didn't know how really good people were.
Right.
Well, I watched Diane Keaton shoot a couple scenes. I was like, oh my God, that woman can really act. Like, she's locked in.
Yeah.
And I did the Christmas tree scene after she passes away with Craig T. Nelson. And he's coach. He's Craig T. Nelson, coach. And we shoot the scene, and he has a line, and he's supposed to cry on it and like hold up an ornament or something. And each take, he would say his line, and one teardrop would come down. I was like, how is he doing that?
Right.
And they would cut, and they would do it again, and he'd say the same line in the same place, and one teardrop would stream down his eye. I was like, God dang, that guy's good. Like,
Oh, yeah.
as a goofy comic who just riffs it and wings it and tries.
I would have thought they sprayed him with water.
It was crazy. I did see that happen I worked on Carnival, and one of the actors couldn't cry on cue. And they came over with the mister, and they put this little mister on, and they go, shh, and it sprays menthol in their eyes. And so they go, roll camera, and they walk over to the actor, and they put the thing on, and they go, shh, and then they go, and action. And she was like this, and the tears are streaming down her face. I was like, hey, I didn't know you could do that. That's way easier than trying to cry on cue.
Oh, so I'm so glad you told me that story.
I'd never seen that before. I was blown away. I go, there's a menthol mister to make you cry?
Yeah.
It's so funny how you watch a movie. Like, I will tell you, I used to do a joke about the fact that because I've done 1 million commercials. I've done like 250 commercials. And I used to do a running bit about like, film, please. You work for 9 months to make 90 minutes.
Right.
Anyone can do that. I'm sitting there. I got to get my whole story out in 30 seconds. That's it. I got 30 seconds to tell you my story of why you need to go to Lowe's. That's how good of an actor I am. And it is kind of true. Like,
right.
You watch some of these movies get shot, you're like, oh, the guy shooting the scene, it's like Kubrick does 150 takes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can hit it 1 out of 150. I'm not that bad of an actor. I'll find it by 150. So, sometimes you work on low budget films and you're like the last take of the day and they're like, hey, man, we don't even have film in the camera enough for a second take. You got 1 take. You better nail this thing or you're in
Oh
serious.
yeah,
You're like,
dude.
whoa.
That's the scariest, because like
Thanks.
I was going to say, like, your Family Stone story, I have a similar story on the audition. I auditioned for this horror film that I ended up getting, and I'm probably going to get cut because it's terrible, but um but I remember I'm like, because I did stand up when I first started to become an actor, and the longer I did stand up, I no longer want to be an actor. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm doing it. And it's the best acting I've ever done. And keep in mind, this is like 2 years ago. So like I'm a great stand up. You know what I mean? So I'm a great stand up, and I'm like doing this scene, how like, oh my God, Beth just got murdered, and like I'm really going all out, like, because I'm her best friend. And then Jake Busey comes into the thing, and I guess he's in it, and I'm doing the scene. I was like, holy Lord, that's Jake Busey.
Are you supposed to say that? No.
So I was just like, holy Lord. So that's how I nailed the part, because like I did something different, and they're like, that was fantastic. I was like, I wouldn't have gotten it if Jake Busey didn't walk in. You know what I mean?
That's hilarious. Well, listen, I'm a big fan of being in the moment. That's another thing I try to teach my kids. I'm like, they're thinking like 2 hours from now, and I go, you can, have that in the back of your head, but whatever you're doing in life, try to
Yeah.
be in the moment. I really feel like that was the skill that I really honed was, and I think as a stand-up comic, I think that's the most, because listen, we're telling the same joke, the same story over and over and over and over again. It always blows my mind when people go, oh, he's a stand-up, he can't act. He can't? You can
Yeah.
tell the same jokes 300 nights a year and make people laugh and have that timing. And listen, audiences know if you're just saying the words. If you're not feeling it, and if you're telling a story and you don't feel that, they won't laugh for a
Yeah.
second.
Exactly.
So I'm always amazed. I mean, that's why I think comics are some of the best actors on earth. They might not be great with your script, but with their script, I mean, they're killers, absolute killers. Yeah.
Yeah. Second to last question I wanted to ask you: who's your favorite comic that's unknown right now that you would pay to go see?
Man, who do I love right now? I can't even think of one off the cuff. I mean, besides you.
Oh, thank you. Excellent.
What's funny? I mean, I just don't, it's so funny. I don't get out that much to see anybody. Who do I love? Oh, well, it's funny. I'm doing a show this weekend with Brian Kiley. You know Brian Kiley?
No, yeah.
Head monologue writer for 17 years for Conan O'Brien show, and then Ellen DeGeneres, and he's maybe one of the best joke writers. Hi, Kate. Remember, I told you I'm doing a podcast for an hour. Remember? Welcome to Marriage. When I go, hey, I'm on a podcast from literally 12:30 to 1:30. She's like, yeah, don't worry, I got that. And then she wanders in. Hey, I was wondering. Oh, sorry. Welcome to Marriage. Kylie is one of the best joke writers around. Like we had a benefit at my kid's school, and he and Kira Sultanovich.
Oh yeah, she's great.
They're two of them. Oh, my wife just texted me. I think we have a gas leak out front. Well, again, welcome to Marriage. There's no gas leak out front.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I could pause it.
But listen, if I do blow up, if this all of a sudden you see a massive explosion on this side, then you should know there was a gas leak out in front of my house, and my wife feels very strongly about it.
And then I would
If
say,
you ever seen my act,
yeah, I was going to say, I never opened it up for Jamie.
Well, you watched Homeschooled, there's probably not a gas leak out front, is my guess. I will tell you, actually, those are two of my favorite comedians, and they came and did a benefit show for my kids' school, and they're just the sweetest people, but also two of the funniest. Kira Sultanovich and Brian Kiley. Go look them up. Brian has a dry bar special out, and Kira has a special, I want to say, on Amazon Prime called You Did This to Me, and she's pregnant in the photo. She was like the first woman to do I'm pregnant comedy special, and she murdered it. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like that question because, I really like I said earlier, there's a lot of comics that people don't know about. And when I watched your special, you're like one of my favorites. You know what I mean? So like, I think that that's a good question because I feel a lot of comics don't know what
I
other
agree. It's a good
fish.
way to pay it forward. And listen, obviously Bargatze and all these guys are phenomenal. And I did My Boys with Gaffigan forever, and I would argue he's one of the greatest stand-ups who's ever lived.
Right.
But you're right to go. Who haven't I seen who I would love? And I think both of those guys are two of my favorites right now.
Yeah. And then my last question for you, Jamie, is if you could go into a time machine and talk to a younger version of yourself, knowing everything you know now, what advice would you tell yourself?
Probably the same lessons I tell my kids all the time: be inclusive and be empathetic.
Ah,
I think sometimes I wasn't inclusive of everybody, where I'm not a great schmoozer. I wish I was a better schmoozer. I wish I was better at it, but I think I was socially, people would always say, "You come off so confident." And I go, "It's an act, man. I'm as insecure as anybody who sees other people, but I wish I was more, I guess inclusive is the right word, to be part of everybody. But I would kind of do my stuff, and I had my small, tight knit group of friends, but I didn't really. Here's the deal: you never know who in the room is going to be the person who's going to hire you down the road.
oh, for sure.
And so might not be the best comic, but turns out they're going to be the best writer, and they're going to end up being a showrunner, or the best director, or the best casting director, or the best so and so. And so sometimes maybe I was like, well, that's not really, that person's not my favorite. They're not really that funny. And that person would go off in some crazy direction. I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming at all. I think you really just don't know who's going to hit. And also I think that comedy is subjective. And even though I think as I've grown older, I've been more, you would see people who would be judgmental of others and go, I'm a genius, I'm the best comedy person of all time, and this person's telling idiotic, crap jokes, and they would blow up.
Right.
And so I never fault anybody's success ever. It's like if you can build a fan base, and somebody else doesn't think you're funny, or you're a prop comic, or you're doing whatever, man, to succeed in this business is the hardest thing for anybody to do. So anyone who can succeed in this, I applaud you. And even if I don't find it to be the funniest thing, I'm always like, well, I can see where the talent lies. And so
Yeah.
I think I'm more appreciative of the art form than I ever was.
Oh, that's a great answer. I thought for sure you were going to say, I'm going to talk to Jamie as I'm Jamie. I'd be like, Jamie, uh, I'm Jamie. I'm
I
you
could just
from.
do it right down the pipe and go, hey, Jamie, listen, here's that one night you were with that girl you really wanted to meet up with. Don't have that fifth drink. I'm
Right.
telling you, don't do it. You're going to get a little sloppy, and it's going to destroy your chances. And she likes you. She really likes
Yeah.
you, but you messed it up. You got a little sloppy that night, and you blew it. So that
Yeah.
night, don't.
I would have been like, hey, if you see Gene Wilder, give him a whole bunch of business cards.
Well, actually, that if I could go back in time, I would also tell myself, I go, because you would go into every audition thinking, this is the one. This is
Right.
None of it is. None of it. None of it means anything. And the more you can be like Bill Murray, who he learned it early to go like, he always said, he goes, when I got nervous, I didn't do my best work. So I learned not to be nervous. And
Yeah.
he threw it away, knowing that even if you throw it away, you might bomb, you might eat it, you might not book that job, you might really embarrass yourself, but at least you kind of did it in your own way, as opposed to having nerves and kind of. I wish I could have conquered my nerves on certain showcases or certain, I remember doing late night TV and just being like, what am I doing here? This isn't. I'm so uncomfortable, and I'm
Yeah.
always amazed when I see somebody who's so like, yeah, I don't care. I'm like, oh. I wish I could go back and go, none of this matters, man. None of it matters. Be the funniest you can be, and that's all you can do, and see where it lands.
Yeah. And I bet you Bill Murray kind of wishes he had a cell phone because who knows how many jobs he got that he didn't know about.
That's right. Didn't he?
You know?
He had one. You could only reach him via phone number or something.
Yeah, like through his lawyers or whatever. So like,
I think you also had to pay him like 100 grand to read a script. So I think he was doing just fine.
Well, Jamie, where can the folks at home follow and support you at?
Please. Well, I do a podcast called The Parents Lounge, and so we do parental mental health nights. So if you have kids, come find me at The Parents Lounge, and you'll see we stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, or just come find me at Jamie Kaler, JamieKaler. It's kind of all my handles at Jamie Kaler. I post a fair amount when I'm working, and you'll see my kids and my insane lifestyle. But most of the stuff I do right now is parenting. But yeah, and the Parents Lounge is mainly where I'm hanging.
I kind of want to go like get a kid and join this parent community.
I have two. Would you like one? Because two's one too many. So I'm gonna
Right.
where can I ship my child to, Keith? Dude, we gotta hang. We gotta go do some stand up together. I'm coming out to one of your shows.
Oh, that would be awesome, man. Yeah, and I want to do shows with you, man. That'd be cool.
I like it.
All right, Jamie. Well, thanks so much for saying yes, and thanks for so much for talking to me.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege.
All right, Air 5. All right, bye, Jamie. Have a great day.
All right, Saget.
All right, guys. That was the episode. Subscribe, rate, review, and we'll see you guys next week on Reza Riffs.